You know the question I get all the time? And I mean all the time. It's not, "Doc, should I try this new brain supplement I saw on TV?" It's not, "Do you think crossword puzzles really help?" It's this one, "How do I keep my brain sharp as I get older?" And people don't just ask me this in the exam room. I've heard it while waiting for my latte at Starbucks, standing in line at the grocery store, even while loading bags into my trunk in the Walmart parking lot. One time, a guy I'd never met, picking through apples at the produce section, looks at my white coat and says, "Hey doc, I'm 62. Memory's fine so far, but a lot of my friends are starting to forget things. What should I be doing now so that doesn't happen to me?" Here's the thing, dementia, what a lot of folks call losing your memory or getting senile, it doesn't usually show up out of nowhere. It creeps in slowly. First, it's little things you might laugh off or blame on stress. But those little things? They're like cracks in the sidewalk, they spread if you don't deal with them. And by the time most people notice, it's a whole lot harder to undo the damage. The good news? You don't need a medical degree to protect your brain. You just need to pay attention, and build a few simple habits into your day, habits that feed your brain, challenge it, and keep it running strong. That's what we're talking about today, 12 daily habits I've seen work for my patients, for my friends, and in my own life. Some you can start right after this video. Others will take a little time to stick. But every single one will help you keep your brain clearer, longer. So, let's start with the big picture, what dementia really is. And why the little things you do today can make all the difference tomorrow. Before we get into the habits, let's talk about what we're actually dealing with. Most people think dementia is just forgetting things. But that's only one piece of the puzzle. Dementia is really a slow change in how your brain works. It can affect memory, sure, but also the way you talk, the way you move, even the way you react to people around you. I'll give you an example. There's a guy in my neighborhood, retired, friendly, drives a pickup. We used to wave at each other every morning. Lately, I've noticed. He still drives by, but he doesn't always wave anymore. Sometimes his face looks blank, like he's deep in thought. Now, that could be nothing, maybe he's just tired. But little changes like that, they can be early signs something's shifting in the brain. I like to think of the brain like a garden. When you take care of it, water it, feed it, pull the weeds, it stays healthy and beautiful. But if you ignore it, weeds show up. Not overnight, but slowly, quietly, until one day the whole thing feels overgrown. Here's the part a lot of folks miss, you can't wait for the weeds to take over before you start gardening. Brain health works the same way, you have to tend to it every single day, even when everything seems fine. The good news is, you don't need to overhaul your life or spend thousands of dollars. You just need to build small, daily habits that feed your brain, challenge it, and protect it from the things that wear it down. And the first habit we're gonna talk about, it starts with paying attention to something you might never think about, the way you look when you talk, even if you're not saying a word. Let me ask you something, has anyone ever looked at you and said, "You look tired today," even when you felt totally fine? It's happened to me. It's happened to my patients. And here's why I bring it up, the way your face moves, the way your eyes light up, even the way your voice sounds, those are all little status updates from your brain. Sometimes, changes in those things are the first sign something's going on up there. I remember one of my patients, a woman in her late 50s. Her daughter told me, "Mom doesn't smile as much lately. She still talks, but it's like her face isn't keeping up with her words." Turns out, parts of the brain that control facial expression are also connected to memory and quick thinking. When those parts start to slow down, it can show up on your face before it shows up on a memory test. Here's what I tell people, every morning, When you're brushing your teeth or making coffee, take 10 seconds to really look at yourself. Say good morning out loud, like you're greeting a neighbor. Notice your eyes, your expression, your voice. Does it sound like you? Does it look like you? And if you want to take it a step further, record a 5-second video of yourself once a month, just saying something simple. Over time, you'll be able to spot little changes that you might not notice day to day. This isn't about vanity. It's about catching the early whispers from your brain before they turn into shouts. And speaking of giving your brain what it needs, let's talk about fueling it the right way, starting first thing in the morning. First question of the day, what's the very first thing you drink in the morning? For a lot of folks, it's coffee. For some, it's an energy drink. And hey, I love coffee as much as the next person, but your brain is thirsty for something else first, water. Here's the deal. Even mild dehydration, like losing just 1.5% of your body's water, can slow your brain down by up to 20%. That means your memory, your focus, even your mood takes a hit before you've even left the house. One of my patients, Gary, 64 years old, used to feel foggy every afternoon. We checked his sleep, his diet, all the usual stuff. Turned out, he barely drank any water before lunch, just coffee and maybe a soda. Once he started drinking a tall glass of water first thing, and sipping through the morning, that afternoon brain fog almost disappeared. Here's my tip, put a glass or bottle of water right next to your coffee maker, so you can't make that first cup until you've finished the water. It's like paying your brain before you pay your caffeine bill. And speaking of paying your brain, breakfast is your first deposit of the day. Think of it like putting premium fuel in your car. If you give your brain the good stuff, it runs smoother all day. For me, that's something quick but balanced, eggs with avocado, a handful of berries, maybe some oatmeal with chia seeds. Plenty of protein, healthy fats, and antioxidants to keep inflammation down and neurons happy. One of my favorite success stories is Linda, 58, who swapped her sugary muffin for eggs and fruit. 2 weeks later, she told me, "Doc, I'm keeping up in meetings again. I don't zone out anymore." That's the kind of small change that pays off big over time. And once you've fueled your brain, the next step is to wake it up in a different way, by talking to people. Real people. In real conversations. Let me ask you. When's the last time you had a real conversation with someone who isn't your spouse, your kids, or your coworkers? I'm talking about chatting with your neighbor while you water the plants, or striking up a conversation with the barista who knows your coffee order. It might not seem like a big deal, but every time you talk to someone new, your brain lights up like a Christmas tree. You're listening, remembering details, thinking about what to say next, all while reading their body language. That's a workout for your brain. I had a patient, Sam, who was retired and living alone. Most days, his only conversations were quick texts to his daughter. When I suggested he join the local library's book club, he rolled his eyes. But after a few weeks, he came back and said, "Doc, I didn't realize how much I missed just talking to people." It's not just about being social, it's about keeping the parts of your brain that handle memory, language, and emotion active. Think of it like keeping an old car running. You have to take it out for a spin, not just start it in the driveway. Here are a few easy ways to do it. Chat with your neighbor when you see them outside. Join a hobby group or a class at the community center. Call an old friend just to say hi, no agenda, no reason. The point is to connect. Screens don't count. Face-to-face conversation is a whole different ball game for your brain. And once you've given your brain that midday workout, the next big thing is knowing how to shut it down for the night, so it can do its own cleanup while you sleep. You know how it feels when you leave dirty dishes in the sink overnight? You walk into the kitchen the next morning and it just feels heavier, messier. That's exactly how your brain feels if you go to bed without giving it a chance to clear out the mental clutter. Here's something a lot of people don't know: while you sleep, especially in deep sleep, your brain actually washes itself. It uses a system called the glymphatic system to flush out waste products, including proteins that can build up and hurt memory over time. Think of it like a nightly rinse cycle for your brain. But here's the catch: if you're staring at your phone or watching intense TV right up until you close your eyes, your brain doesn't get the signal to switch into cleaning mode. It's like trying to vacuum the floor while people are still walking all over it. So here's what I recommend: about an hour before bed, start winding things down, turn off the TV, put your phone on silent. Dim the lights in your living space. Read something light, nothing too stressful. Or just sit quietly with a cup of herbal tea and breathe. One of my patients, Marlene, started doing this power down hour. Within 2 weeks, she said she wasn't just sleeping better, she felt clearer in the mornings, like someone had opened a window in her head. And that's exactly the goal: wake up with a brain that feels fresh, not cluttered. Because tomorrow, you're gonna need it to tackle everything from grocery lists to remembering where you parked the car. Next, I want to wrap it all together and help you decide, out of all these habits, which one should you start with today? Here's the thing: I just gave you a bunch of ideas. Water first thing in the morning, better breakfasts, talking to people, bedtime wind down. It's easy to hear all that and think, I need to do everything, right now. But that's the fastest way to do nothing. I tell my patients this all the time: pick one. One thing you can start today, no matter how small. Because once you start doing that one thing regularly, it opens the door for the next one. And the next. Until suddenly, you've built a whole lifestyle around protecting your brain. For you, maybe it's drinking a full glass of water before coffee. For someone else, it's calling an old friend once a week. For another person, it's setting a 10 p.m. bedtime and actually sticking to it. I've seen people in their 70s and 80s stay sharp, not because they have some magic gene, but because they've been stacking these little habits for years. They've been gardening their brain, pulling the weeds before they could take over. So, what's your one thing? Write it down. Tell someone about it. Better yet, do it before the day is over. Because here's the truth: you can't control getting older, but you can control how your brain ages. And the choices you make today, they're the memories you'll still have tomorrow.